Why does motivation fade so quickly? One day you wake up ready to conquer your goals, full of energy and determination. Yet just a few days later, that fire is gone. The same task that once felt exciting now feels heavy, even impossible. This is the paradox of motivation. It arrives like a lightning strike, flooding us with power and hope. But just as suddenly, it vanishes, leaving us stranded. For many, this cycle feels familiar. Bursts of motivation followed by long stretches of guilt, self-doubt, or inaction. The highs are intoxicating. They give us the feeling that change is finally within reach. But the lows remind us of motivation's fragile nature. It is not built to last. In this episode, we'll explore why motivation works the way it does, why it so often fails us, and how chasing it can become a trap. More importantly, we'll uncover what can replace it, the quieter but stronger force that keeps us moving when the spark disappears. Psychologists describe motivation as the force that initiates, guides, and sustains behavior. It is the inner drive that pushes us to act, whether to study for an exam, go to the gym, or build a business. Without it, action feels empty. With it, almost anything seems possible. Motivation comes in two main forms. The first is intrinsic motivation, the kind that arises from within. This is when we act because the task itself feels rewarding. Reading a book out of curiosity, painting for the joy of creating, or exercising because it makes us feel strong. Intrinsic motivation is deeply personal, tied to growth and meaning. The second is extrinsic motivation, driven by external rewards or pressures. This is when we act to gain something tangible or avoid punishment. Studying to pass a test, working for a paycheck, or dieting to impress others. Extrinsic motivation can be powerful, but it often fades quickly once the reward is removed. What makes motivation so appealing is the emotional surge it brings. It feels like energy, clarity, and purpose all at once. But this is also why it's fragile. That surge depends on mood, circumstances, and triggers. Without reinforcement, the feeling fades, and with it, our will to act. Motivation is real, powerful, and necessary. But by itself, it was never designed to last. Motivation often feels like a sudden rush of energy. It can hit after watching an inspiring video, reading a powerful quote, or imagining a brighter future. In those moments, the world seems lighter, obstacles shrink, and possibilities expand. It's as if a hidden fuel tank has been unlocked inside us. This surge is what drives people to set new goals. It's why New Year's resolutions are so popular. At the start of January, gyms are crowded, journals are filled, and promises flow. The emotional spark convinces us that change is not only possible, but inevitable. Motivation provides the spark that makes us believe today is the first day of a new life. But this energy is also short-lived. Like caffeine, it gives a boost but eventually fades, leaving behind fatigue or disappointment. That's why motivation is often compared to a drug. The high feels addictive. People chase it, waiting for the next dose, the next video, the next speech, the next burst of inspiration. In truth, motivation is not meant to last. It was designed by nature to ignite action, not sustain it. The danger comes when we confuse the spark for the fire itself. The high can start the journey, but only discipline and habits can carry us to the finish line. For all its appeal, motivation has a dark side, one that explains why so many people struggle to sustain change. First, motivation fades. The surge of energy that feels so empowering at the beginning almost always wears off. That is because motivation is linked to emotion, and emotions are fleeting. You can feel unstoppable in the morning, but by evening, the spark is gone. No matter how strong the start, the feeling eventually slips away. This fading creates dependence. Many people become addicted to external boosts, motivational videos, inspiring quotes, podcasts, speeches. They search for the next spark the way others search for caffeine or sugar. But like any high, it never lasts. You are left needing more, yet getting less from each dose. Then comes the crash after the high. The energy that once made tasks feel easy suddenly disappears, and what remains feels heavier than before. The contrast between the high and the low can leave people disoriented. They may begin to wonder if something is wrong with them, when in reality, it's just how motivation works. Over time, this leads to over-reliance. When motivation becomes the only fuel source, people feel broken when it is gone. They may label themselves as lazy or unworthy, forgetting that the problem is not them, but the unreliable nature of motivation itself. This problem is amplified by toxic productivity culture. Modern society celebrates constant hustle, endless growth, and the idea that you should always be driven. Social media floods us with clips of entrepreneurs, athletes, and influencers preaching no days off and grind 24/7. In this environment, losing motivation feels like failure. People internalize shame when they cannot sustain endless drive, as if being human is not enough. This is the dark side of motivation. It is a spark that cannot last, yet we build entire lives around trying to keep it alive. Instead of recognizing its limits, we chase it endlessly, mistaking the temporary high for a permanent solution. But the truth is simple. Motivation was never built to carry us to the finish line. Without systems, habits, and discipline, the fire always burns out. Stories make the dark side of motivation easier to see. Take Sophia, a student at university. At the start of the semester, she was filled with determination. She bought new notebooks, set study schedules, and promised herself this time would be different. For the first few weeks, she was unstoppable. But by midterm, the spark was gone. Assignments piled up, and her early excitement faded into procrastination. Her grades didn't collapse because she lacked ability, but because her motivation couldn't sustain the long haul. Now consider Marcus, a gym goer in January. Fueled by New Year's resolutions, he hit the gym every morning for weeks. His energy was contagious, and he told friends he'd finally commit. But by March, the gym was emptier, and Marcus was gone. His motivation had faded, leaving behind good intentions but no lasting results. Then there's Layla, a content creator. She launched her channel with passion, uploading videos daily, riding the wave of motivation. But the pace was impossible to keep. Within months, she burned out. The pressure to keep going without a stable routine left her exhausted and questioning her path. History offers examples too. Ancient philosophers often warned about fleeting bursts of inspiration. The Stoics, for example, taught that passion is unstable. Epictetus reminded his students that discipline, not enthusiasm, leads to freedom. Inspiration can ignite, but only steady practice builds resilience. These stories remind us that motivation is not a villain, but neither is it a savior. It can begin the journey, but it cannot finish it. Psychology helps us understand why motivation feels so powerful, and why it slips away so easily. Each burst of motivation is linked to dopamine spikes in the brain. Dopamine is the chemical of anticipation and reward. It gives us a rush when we imagine success or take the first step toward a goal. But like any high, the spike fades, leaving us searching for the next hit. That's why motivation often feels addictive. It excites, but does not endure. Philosophy adds another layer. Friedrich Nietzsche argued that discipline, not fleeting passions, shapes greatness. Passion burns bright, but fades quickly. Discipline is the steady force that builds strength over time. He believed that relying on bursts of enthusiasm weakens us, while training ourselves to act without needing motivation makes us resilient. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom through the science of habit formation. Researchers like James Clear and B.J. Fogg emphasize that real change comes from small, repeatable actions. Habits work even when motivation is absent. They anchor behavior, creating consistency that emotional highs cannot provide. Together, psychology and philosophy reveal the same truth. Motivation is the spark, but habit and discipline are the fire. Relying on motivation alone comes at a cost. The most obvious is inconsistency. When the spark is there, progress feels easy. But when it fades, action stalls. This stop and start pattern leaves people feeling unreliable, unable to trust themselves to follow through. Alongside inconsistency comes guilt and shame. People often blame themselves for losing motivation, thinking they are lazy or weak. They forget that it is motivation itself that is temporary. The shame deepens when they compare themselves to others who appear endlessly driven, especially in today's hustle culture. The toll on mental health can be heavy. Constantly chasing bursts of motivation creates stress and disappointment. The highs and lows feel like an emotional roller coaster, leaving many stuck in cycles of hope and frustration. Instead of building progress, they build self-doubt. In the end, this cycle explains why so many feel stuck. Chasing motivation keeps us waiting for the perfect moment to act, when in reality, lasting change comes from consistency, not emotion. Motivation is not a bad thing, but making it the foundation of our efforts is like trying to build a house on sand. If motivation fades, what can replace it? The answer lies in building habits and systems. Instead of waiting for inspiration, create routines that guide your actions automatically. When the structure is there, progress continues even when motivation disappears. Discipline is greater than inspiration. Discipline means showing up whether you feel like it or not. It is the quiet force that turns goals into reality. Inspiration may open the door, but discipline keeps you walking through it. Finally, focus on small daily actions. Consistency compounds. A single workout, a page of writing, or 10 minutes of practice may feel small, but over time, these actions build lasting change. Habits do not rely on emotions. They rely on repetition. Motivation sparks the journey. Habits sustain it. Discipline makes it real. So ask yourself, do you live by bursts of motivation or by habits that last? The spark fades, but discipline endures. If this made you pause and reflect, subscribe to Mindcrafted, where we explore the mind and craft a better life together.